She had the six-figure salary and the no-sleep grind until she found another way. Founder of Kingdom-Driven Entrepreneur, author, and speaker, Shae Bynes has reached millions around the world. In this episode, she walks us through the journey of escaping the grind, leaning on grace, and building a brand that fits her life.
I came from hustle and grind world, do all the things, figure out all the things, make all the things happen, be on team no sleep.
There's a linear thing and there's an exponential line. I sort of don't like the linear thing. Very early on, I was like, this isn't it, man.
Certainly after leaving a comfortable corporate salary and going into full-time entrepreneurship, I felt all of that. What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And what does this look like? So I freaked out for several months. I did not start off well.
On some level, no one is ever ready. No one really ever has the full checklist to make the transition. The key here is moving. Make a move, even if it's a baby step. The baby step helps you not be terrifying.
Exactly that. I deal with fear with movement. I've watched people say they want something but not make the decision, and I can tell they haven't made the decision based off of the actions and the words that come out of their mouth. This is actually a fantasy of yours because you actually haven't made that decision.
I did stand before the king of pop. Michael Jackson came to my event.
I was gonna say, did you dance for any kings? I saw your moves.
I have a thin skin. That's why I don't work with a massive amount of people. Make yourself coachable. You have to relinquish control and be able to find a grace that carries you. What is the secret to listening to a dream and not letting it die? Shae Bynes, thanks for being here. Tell us the essence of Shae Bynes. What is overflowing out of your passion, out of decades of work into the marketplace from Shae Bynes?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. I gotta say, me in a nutshell, I'm someone who just loves people, loves God. I've been completely transformed by all kinds of grace in my life from both personal and business. Family person, I am married to my husband of 20 something years now. We've been together since we're 16. So I kind of stopped counting. Mother of 3, love business. But I'd say the thing that bubbles over in me is really the power of grace. It's become like the through line of my last several decades. And I think for the rest of my life. And it's not even a religious concept.
Okay. So explain, unpack. I know from a religious standpoint, I'm a faith guy, right? So I understand what grace means. But you mentioned something specific. It's a concept that transcends religion. Tell us how that was dropped into your life and became almost like a thread that you're following.
Yeah. Well, it actually did start off as a faith encounter. It did start with an encounter with Jesus for me personally. And so that's where it started. This was because I came from hustle and grind world, do all the things, figure out all the things, make all the things happen, be on team no sleep. I was on that thing. That's how I learned to do business. I was doing business on the side with my corporate career. And that was just how I learned things. It was an encounter with Jesus to walk me through grace to understand how to walk and work and live differently. Okay. So it did start with Jesus. Now, but if I take that thread and run that thing, bottom line is that grace is an enablement. It's a divine enablement. And regardless of whether you share my same faith context or not, it is actually available to you as a gift. And so I have found that it has just been the thread that literally changed everything for me. And it started probably about 2012 or so and will be for the rest of my life. And I've walked many people through it. And it's really helped to change people, not just personally, but professionally in their family life, in their business, with their teams. And that's kind of the through line of my life at this point.
So you mentioned business, you mentioned grind and business as two separate things. So I'm assuming corporate grind, correct?
I've done corporate grind and I've done entrepreneurial grind. So I've done both. When I finished college, I worked corporate for about 11 years, had a business on the side that whole time. And then I left and went to full-time business in 2010. So I've been full-time business since 2010, and it started with a whole lot of entrepreneurial grinding.
What was your corporate thing?
So I started off as a computer scientist. I was a software engineer when I started. I did a lot of different things. I probably had 5 jobs in 10 years there. By the time that I left, I was a program director for global university relations. So I was managing a lot of our global work that we were doing in research in various areas all across the globe. It was fun work for me.
That's a big job. Okay.
Yeah, it was a great job.
And you still had the restlessness a little bit to start something on the side. That's, okay, what was the side gig?
So the side gig started off as doing Yahoo auctions. This was like 1999, 2000-ish, somewhere around there. So I started with just finding the things that were selling that it was hard for people to find, and I would find them and I was selling them on Yahoo auction. So it started there, and then eventually got with a group of friends and we had an online community. MySpace pretty much took us out, but we had an online community and we ran events, did that for about 5 years. By the time I left corporate, I was in real estate investing. So I was investing in residential properties in South Florida, and I was beginning to consult people who wanted to get into the business and grow it the same way I did, which was doing private money investing.
So tell me this. So this is actually a fascinating thread, because you are progressing through your career in corporate, and the job is getting bigger. There's a global reach. And yet at the same time, there's this itch, obviously, because you are experimenting with things, Yahoo auctions, things like that, then events, then real estate. Explain to me the psychology of that. How do you get infected with this sort of disease, right?
You know what it was for me?
Yeah.
It was that relatively quickly going into my corporate career, when I was looking at like, if I was going to stay here long term, what would that look like? I couldn't find, Christian, anyone who was doing the type of work that I thought I would want to do there and have the type of life that I wanted. What I found is that a lot of people were either super unhappy in their personal life, family life, or they didn't have an opportunity to raise their own children, or there was just some kind of dynamic that I was like, there's too much sacrifice I'm not willing to make to do that type of career here. So I knew that I wouldn't be there very long because I would start to get bored. I would want to progress, but then I would be stunted because I'd be unwilling to make the sacrifices necessary to make that next
Do you
move.
think that most people start feeling that tension, or some people start feeling that tension?
Some people do, right? Everyone's internal drivers are different,
Mm-hmm.
So not everybody, but I think a lot of people have an itch. So for me, the itch was I wanted flexibility. It was just like, I wanted to know that if I was going to do something, that I'd have a little bit more input or a lot more input into the hours I worked, the way I worked, and all of those things. And so that itch started relatively early, even though there's no one in my family. I didn't have models of entrepreneurs in my family or anything like that.
So it's an itch. It's an itch for a lifestyle.
Yes.
Is there also an itch for almost like adventure or possibility, opportunity, back-end gains kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I wouldn't have had language for it that way at that time. But once I stepped into full-time entrepreneurship, relatively quickly, I would have grabbed onto that language.
But I think it's more of it's a gut feeling. You might not even have words for it. I think it's something along the lines of, there's a linear thing and there's an exponential line. And
yes.
I sort of don't like the linear thing, basically, right? That's what I felt. And
yes.
Same thing.
Yes.
Couldn't find the language for it. Very early on, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it, man. Yeah.
And you could go to another thing, but then I would have the same feeling again, right? I mean, I never did because I didn't work at multiple corporations, but I would have ran into the same thing over and over and over again.
But even within, the time that you were working for IBM, correct?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, that's a world. That's a planet. That's a planet, right? Like you can stay within IBM and just move all kinds of ways and stuff like that. It's an amazing organization. I have friends who especially in the heyday, it was like, honestly, the cutting edge of the best people in the world. They were in IBM.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed the company. I have nothing negative to say about it. I loved the people that I worked with. I have nothing negative to say about that experience. It was just, I just knew that I wasn't going to be able to go the distance there.
So you start paying attention to that inner voice and you start making moves, right?
Yes.
How many, like on average, and this is, I think of people who have the itch, these are my people, right? I'm trying to get people to go, listen to that voice, be prepared for life to suck a little bit. like for several mistakes in a row before you hit any kind of return on investment. Okay, I think I'm in the right direction. Did you feel like something like that happened with you as well?
Well, certainly after leaving a comfortable corporate salary and going into full-time entrepreneurship, I felt all of that. The whole time I was doing business on the side, it almost didn't matter how much I was making in business. It gave me some flexibility, and I had a really great paycheck on the side. So there was nothing putting pressure on it. So there was no urgency behind it. It was more just exploration, learning, and growing. I didn't feel those other aspects of things until not having that, $96,000 ready for me, whenever.
Yeah, when you jump off a cliff, it all becomes much more real, sort of much more life and death. How'd you deal with that?
In the beginning, not so well. So I got to backtrack a little bit and to tell you how I even made the leap in the first place. This is part of the faith story as well. So you have to know about me that I used to be a pretty just like performance driven type of person. And so from a faith perspective, I was basically saying, here are all of my goals. And I never was really seeking God around it, or just basically saying, God, please bless all of these plans that I have, And so I would do that every January. Here are all my goals, Lord, bless all of these plans that I have. And one particular year was the year before I left. I heard this thought. It came through very strong, Christian, and it was, you're going to leave this job by June of 2010. I knew it wasn't my thought, because if it was already my thought, I would have had a plan, a strategy, would have already known all the things to do. I had never heard that thought before. I never had that thought before. And so I wrote it down, and I'm like, that's interesting. And then, so I just started saying, what were all the things I would need to do to make that make sense to me, for me to be wise, for me to leave this job? And so I wrote down my little list of things, and I said, I'm now going to work on my little list of things. But then I was getting increasingly uncomfortable in the position, even though I liked the people and liked the work. It was almost like feeling that nudge, like it is time to go. But my checklist wasn't complete yet. So fast forward into the next year, I'm at a business conference. I'm ironing my clothes in my hotel room, getting ready to go to the last session. And this time, some people may have heard this phrase, like the soft, still voice of the Lord kind of thing. Well, I experienced something that was actually felt way more crazy than that. And it was a go, and it felt really strong. It might as well have been shouted at me. That's how I felt it so loudly. And so from there, I was like, I gotta go. Thankfully, my husband was on board, and that's how I ended up leaving. My checklist of things that I thought would be really wise and would have been wise to have those things completed before leaving that very comfortable paycheck, none of them were complete. So by the time I left, it was for real, felt like a massive faith leap for me, because all the wise things to have in order weren't in order. And so that's why I'm like, I didn't do it well. I did it by faith, but then I freaked out for the next several months, because it's like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And what does this look like? So I freaked out for several months until getting back to, this is why I left, and really just starting to walk that out step by step. But I did not start off well. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I think you are wired better than I am, honestly, more wisely, because I didn't even have a checklist. I don't usually when I make the leap. So I drive my wife crazy when I do that. And I've done it several times, and I'm honestly done doing, hopefully, right? But you learn over the iterations of doing the same thing. I like that you still had a checklist and you were going through it. I think that's actually wise. Right?
I'm a strategist. I was a computer scientist,
exactly.
A software engineer.
Right. Yeah, I'm an artist, so I am allowed to do like completely unwise things.
I was doing project management, risk mitigation.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. You're supposed to be good at this, right? So I get it. Okay, so for you, this is like shame on me, right?
This was crazy. Yes.
Yeah. Still, and the thing is, I think at some point, on some level, and I've had this conversation so many times with so many people in the work I do, that on some level, no one is ever ready. No one really ever has the full checklist to make the transition. There's a breaking point. Something just shifts.
Yes. Or there's things they didn't even know to put on the checklist.
Yeah. Like, you just don't know.
You just don't know what you don't know.
And then you're flying, right? And you don't know how you're going to land. And I think that's just universally, I think, a real thing.
Yes, that's the real deal. You just don't know. That's why, like, it's entrepreneurship is faith, regardless of which way you look at it. I mean,
so a couple of things, and you can pick an order for this, right? That I'm interested in. You started this thing or plugged into this thing of faith-based entrepreneurship. I think that I'm messing up the title, but you'll correct me. That's one thing. One thread that I would like to pursue. Because those two things in the eyes of many people don't go together necessarily, and in my mind, they totally do. And I would love to pull at that thread and really drive it home. The second one is this piece that how you landed on grace as a foundational thing. That is that's really fascinating, because that's also not necessarily intuitively the thing you would pick in the space of advising the businesses and founders. So pick a lane.
I get to pick. All right. So it's Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, which was started in 2012. I'll start with that story, and then, because that came first, actually, interestingly enough. All right. So basically, when I left my corporate career in 2010 and I freaked out for several months, I was figuring out, now I got all this time in the world to do real estate. So I'm just going to throw myself into this and build the biggest real estate investing company that I desire to, right? So that was what I thought I was going to do. And so about 6 months, and I knew what I was doing because I'd been doing it for years, but it was like this 6 months of just like really grinding it out. I was making like this much progress. I was starting to feel a little bit frustrated by that. And in the middle of, one of my kind of internal temper tantrums about it, now we got another thought that comes up really close. I knew it wasn't my thought. And it was, are you done yet? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I am done, because I'm trying to do all the things and I know how to do these things, and it just doesn't seem to be working. Then I realized, I left this job, not even on my own accord. Like, I left in response, but I never went to the one I was responding to say, hey, now that I've left this job, just kind of pray about what's next. And so that was actually my first, it seems weird saying this now, but it was in that moment that I realized, if I was feeling that same sense from God to leave, I should go back to that same God for why I left and what I should do next. So that was my awakening moment to that thought. And so I just started kind of praying about, what to do next and what that looked like. And I only knew to do real estate. So I kept doing that. But now I had a different posture. I wasn't like, I have to make these things happen. I've got to, I was kind of in a different place and just open to see whatever else might be coming up. So the way Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur came up is that one of my real estate buddies, this was now 2 years after I've left my job. One of my real estate buddies says, I met this woman, and when I met her, I really felt like I was supposed to connect the two of you. So I said, great. He connects me with this woman. I get on the phone with her. She was out in LA. And she says, there's this client of mine that I really feel like I'm supposed to connect you to. So she connects me to this woman named Antonina, who lived in South Carolina. We instantaneously connected. I just knew maybe 5-6 weeks into us meeting that God brought us together for some reason. I had no idea what it was. And so several weeks after we met, I had said to her, I didn't really feel like we met for a really specific reason. She goes, I've been sensing the same. And I said, well, let's pray about it and come back in a week. So we did that, talked about some ideas because she was in business too. I'm like, no, it's none of that. Let's pray and come back again. We did this 3 rounds, pray, come back, pray, come back, pray, come back. She says, on this other round, she says, you know what? I wrote these words down in a journal. God gave me these words. I wrote them down. I don't know what they mean. I don't know what it's about. I don't know what he wants me to do with them. But the words are Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. And when she said that, what came out of my mouth instantaneously, having no idea what I was talking about, was that's a community, that's a movement, and it starts with a book. And as soon as I said that, I thought to myself, what's a kingdom-driven entrepreneur? Because I don't even know what that is. I know what a Christian entrepreneur is, but I don't know what a kingdom-driven entrepreneur is. My next thought was, how does it start with a book? I don't even know what this phrase means. And I was like, and what's a movement? Like, I was having all of these thoughts after I told this woman, this is what it is.
This is what it is, yeah.
Yeah, it was so wild. And so those next several months was us just saying, okay, well, what is this? What does this look like? Getting to know each other, praying about it and all of those things. And it was like we were getting insight on what the thing was as we were like seeking God around what this thing is, right? So it was just this kind of wacky thing. Most people say they get their 10,000 hours and then they go help people. But we were like being introduced to a concept, walking that out with one another, and then saying, oh, and now go share this with people, even though you just started, right? And so we did start Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur together that fall, November 2012. We did start it with a book that we gave away on Kindle, invited people into a Facebook group because we were like, we can start this way. And 2,000 people showed up in this Facebook group. And Christian, we're like, what are we supposed to do with these people? We don't even know why they're here really. And we don't know what we're supposed to do with them. That's how Kingdom Driven Entrepreneurs started in 2012. It was just taking one step after the next, just like, what is this? I'm not sure. I'm just taking a step in faith. And then it started.
I want to pause for a second. If you're watching this channel, you have the passion, the skills, the expertise. What probably is missing is the brand strategy and business model that turns all of that into the income and impact you're capable of. And every day without it is a day you're leaving both on the table. That's exactly what we built in the Passion to Profit Lab. 4 days, 1 hour a day, live with me. Scan the QR code on screen or grab the link in the description. So can I pause you there for a second? Because I'm always thinking of people listening, right? A couple of threads that or maybe highlights. One is this. There's something to be said about someone who is full of ideas, creative, very active, very disciplined, and good at what they do, to almost like not hedge, but basically say, look, I'm capable. I can build my future. I have agency. You have choices. People like that have choices. To still introduce, and actually lean into a transcendent practice, like prayer, meditation, whatever you want to call it, right? And the reason I think for that is super important is that there is a higher level of purpose that can enter your life. And if you are the center of the universe for yourself, and all of your decision making and all of your basically the choices you make come from just you, even though you're super capable, it is unwise. You're leaving so much on the table unless you bring the divine into your life. Do you agree with that?
100%. Yes. That's why I call them a wild and crazy and amazing adventure at this point. I mean, that was like really a fundamental shift for me.
But what you had is you allowed yourself to listen, right? And in some of those things, like you can go, am I hearing voices? What is this? Like, is it just me convincing myself of things? It is unnerving. It's nerve-wracking. And yet I really do think that, if you're listening to this and you have a, it doesn't even have to be a fire. It could be just a spark.
Yeah.
Listen to the spark. The spark may be something that will change your life and then change the lives of the people you're supposed to serve. But fear comes in. And my question to you is, how do you overcome this fear?
Yeah. So I break things down into smaller pieces so that it's less intimidating. Right now, the leaving my corporate job, that's a massive decision, a massive leap. But when it came to things like this, and also things that happen now, if it feels like, oh, this feels rather intimidating, this seems really big. And also, I'm not sure. I think this is kind of the direction, but I'm not exactly sure. I still have questions. I'll take small steps in faith because it's like I said, entrepreneurship, business, it is faith. All of these, it is faith. I will take steps in the direction. And I'm paying attention to what's happening as I'm taking steps in a direction, because I'm looking for either momentum, information, a stalling out, a feeling of something's not right here. Like I'm experiencing that while I'm taking the steps forward. I can't experience that not being willing to take any steps forward. So it's like break it down into a smaller step that is not nearly as intimidating. It still might be intimidating, but not nearly as intimidating. And then start there. And I have exercised that muscle, Christian, so much over the last 15, 16 years at this point, that now things that were a huge deal before are not a huge deal to me now. Now I still have new things that are huge deals to me, right? Because we're always growing.
But I think here, the key here is moving. Make a move, even if it's a baby step. The baby step helps you it not be terrifying, but it's an actual step. The opposite of that is not taking the step, even the baby step.
That's right.
Make the movement, right? Make a move, make 3 moves, even if they're small moves, but in the right direction. Even if it's in the wrong direction, you'll find out that it's wrong direction, then you change direction, right?
Exactly that. So that's how I deal with fear. I deal with fear with movement.
Okay, so this kingdom-driven entrepreneur thing, what is it? How did it shape? You didn't know in the beginning. What did it shape to be?
So fast forward, have reached millions of entrepreneurs around the world. We have mentorship programs. We've taught through courses, mentorship, had some events. My husband is the CEO now, as of 5 years ago at this point, which was also a whole other funny story because that he wasn't even involved in the business. And then, you know how these things happen. So that was a God thing for him. He's like, oh, I'm supposed to be leading this thing now, so he's a massage therapist. He didn't see that one coming and neither did I. And so, it's just, it went places that I never would have imagined. Like I shared with you before we hit record, my whole life at this point, outside of the fact that I write books, none of those things would have been on my bingo card as a college student or even when I started my career right after school. So it's been really amazing to just walk this thing out. And by the way, we were very pioneering at that time. You couldn't Google like kingdom entrepreneur. It's a really common phrase these days. But at that time, it wasn't something people were talking about. They were, there would be, for those in, Christian faith circles, there was Christian entrepreneurship. I have a friend, Patrice, he has something called biblical entrepreneurship that's been going on for over 20 years now. But kingdom and entrepreneurship were not pairs in public conversations at the time. And so we were really walking this thing out. Like, we don't exactly know what this thing looks like, but we're going to just keep walking this out step by step.
You said Christian entrepreneur. There's versions of it, right? And there's faith-driven entrepreneur, sort of a big thing. It becomes a thing. What is did your brand, for lack of a better word, your message, your specific sort of secret sauce, did it appeal to any specific demographic or type of personality primarily? What was that? I'm curious.
I don't know whether the phrase was the thing that captured people, but when we were talking about what it is and what it's like practically to walk that out, like as a kingdom-driven entrepreneur, that's what was resonating, right? So people who really wanted to have greater impact through their work, people who like the idea of, partner with God, like that actual exchange with the divine as it relates to work, like people who resonated with that. Yes, they were like, yes, more of that. How do I even do that? Because there was so much compartmentalization, which I understand. There was compartmentalization in my world. I would go to church on Sunday and I just want to be a person of integrity. But the idea of actually seeking God or praying, meditating about business or even having divine inspiration around business, that wasn't even a thing to me. And so it wasn't a thing to a lot of people. So when they hear it, they're like, ooh, that sounds good. I want that.
Was there a distinctiveness or like a layer, perhaps a dimension that was distinctive about what you were building to what was built before? Let's say Christian entrepreneur circles, things like that.
The biggest difference was what I'd call the with God factor, not for God. I'm doing this business, for the glory of God. It was, we're doing business with the presence of God. That was the differentiator, and still is, quite honestly. And
interesting. That makes sense. Yeah. And I think what I've noticed is that the first wave of people that are doing business and talking about faith integrated with business, a lot of it had to do with for God, but also almost like it was really more an emphasis on leadership specifically.
Yes.
Right. The John Maxwell sort of this world. It's a lot of it was like in the marketplace, you're a leader. This is how you become a leader. Blah blah blah. Right. And I think what you introduced as a movement was there was this other layer that other people were craving. That's why the demand was there, unclaimed.
Yes. And people didn't have language for it. So when they saw the language, like, oh, that's the thing that I didn't have language for. That's what I want. Sometimes people would say that they would do a Google search or whatever, and they would say, like, is anyone talking about like business? I don't know. I want to do business with God, or I want to do business God's way, or I want to do business with God, or whatever. And they would just stumble upon us, on the internet that way. Right. And find our first book or, whatever, and then show up in the community. And that was happening even before we had any products. All we had was the book and the Facebook group at that time. We didn't have more for a while because we were trying to take a step by step. Like, what is this? We're not exactly sure what this is, how we're supposed to serve, what this looks like. We really did take our time in that process. We didn't want it to be a money-driven pursuit.
I definitely feel it resonates with me because I still speak at churches every once in a while, and I do this talk entitled "The Economics of Calling," and it's basically a lot about that. And one of the things that really inspire me, as a contrast, almost as an unfulfilled need, still to this day in the broader Christian community, is that what the original writers of the Bible thought about work. The place of work as a partnership, as a calling, as a way to serve other God's children, was lost actually in the Christian faith over time for all kinds of different reasons. I think none of it was malicious, but to this day, I think that persists. That ignorance persists, I think.
I believe so. I mean, we're seeing lots of growth, but also lots more to go.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Like some of this language, for example, on my website, I have a verse from Proverbs 22, and it says, "See a man skilled at his work, he'll stand before kings." That inspires me. And because I have stood before maybe not presidents, not kings, but presidents. I did stand before the king of pop. Michael Jackson came to my event.
I was going to say, did you dance for any kings?
I don't know if that counts, but I did. I campaigned for presidents. I stood before several presidents, not a U.S. president yet. But the king of pop, yes, he did come to my event.
He was a king in the music industry.
Yeah, and I'm talking more generally about kings of industry, right? Kings of artistry, things like that. I've stood before kings like that, right? And it's always because of skill, because of taking pride in what you do and excellence. And there's something missing in the DNA of the Christian culture where that's not a central thing. It's just not. It's still honestly not a thing. There's pockets and clusters of people who talk about that. Usually these are entrepreneurs, but I think in the world of even the writers of the Bible, it was much more central than in the lives of Christians today.
Yes. I don't have the stats on hand, but there's actually been studies around this, and the percentage is horribly low.
Where I go and speak about these things, people just perk up, and I think it's a dormant. It's life-giving. People go, I need the thing that I do to matter on a spiritual level, and the sort of part of it is just sort of the Christian faith has mutated a bit. Part of it is sort of this post-industrial world where you're sort of a cog in a machine type of thing, right? I think there's layers to why that happens, but I do think it's a massive need, massive need.
100%. That's why I'm like, no, we'll be having this conversation for the rest of our lives. I want to go back to the other thing because you said how did the grace thing show up? So we'll go to that part of the story. So like I said, started Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur in 2012. I was still a grinder at the time. Okay. So I would have easily taken in I'm going to grind for God into Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur land, right? That's just, it would be like, now I'll just add God on top of my grind. But fortunately, relatively soon after starting Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, where I told you how I had this encounter with Jesus that led to all of this, I'm going to tell you how it showed up. So there's a scripture in the Bible. It's in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30. And these verses, for some people who may not even be Christian might have heard some of these verses where Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. There's a whole group of scriptures. Come to me, all of those who are weary and need rest for your souls, all of that. Okay. Well, I'd heard it many, many times, But this particular day, our pastor read it from the Message Bible, and it said, "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you will learn to live freely and lightly." I mean, this is why I have that whole thing memorized. I don't even have the version that I've heard 150 times like memorized, but I've got that one memorized because that was so impactful for me when I heard it. And so I was like, what is that? First of all, that's where the with factor showed up. I'm like, walk with me, work with me, keep company with me. Okay, so number one, I got to know what that for real looks like. I think I've been dabbling in that. That's how we ended up here with Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, but I need to know more of that. And then what's an unforced rhythm of your grace? Because I need to know. So I'm having all of these thoughts in this moment. And I'm like, okay, Jesus, if you're a personification of grace and this is you, just show me all of that. And that was the beginning of the journey. That's where I learned how to begin to exchange my grind for grace and all the things in my life, not just, grace as, the favor of God in my life as a believer, but like the empowering, the divine enabling grace that allows me to be all that I've been called to be, to do all I've been called to do, to experience way more than I could ever do on my own. That came from that moment and just continued on from there. But it started with that little spark. You talk about spark? That was a massive spark.
That is a massive spark. So tell all of the burdened and the tired listening right now going, that's me.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Yes. Okay. So the beginning step for me was, I'm a to-do list person, I'm a checklist person. I love all of those things. I'm a strategist. I love all of that. But I had to learn how to surrender it, and I had to learn how to listen. So I had to learn how to actually look at work differently. Work isn't just all of my inputs and all the things that I'm putting my hands to. Work also includes me being willing to sit, listen, to inquire. How am I going to receive divine insight if I don't ask, seek, or knock? I got to do that, right? So I shifted what used to be like my quiet time. Okay, well, if I read this many scriptures or, I sang my favorite worship songs or whatever, it turned into business meetings with God. It was like, okay, so now I just said, I'm here to also listen. Yes, I've got questions. I'm also here to listen. I'm also here to kind of surrender all this stuff that's getting on my nerves. I'm all of those things. And when I started doing that, and there would be thoughts, remember I told you how I would have these thoughts, even going up to leaving my job and all of those things. That's when I wasn't even asking God about anything. In these moments, when I'm having these business meetings with God, there would be thoughts that I'd have, or just like this knowing that I would have. And then what do I have to do? I don't know if I know it. I don't know what to do with it. So what do I have to do? I have to take a step in faith, my small step in that direction. So I just started exercising the muscle of being willing to actually be still, to seek, to listen. I started walking differently. When I take my walks, I'm like, I'm going to quietly walk. I'm going to inquire while I walk. I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to listen while I walk. Like I just started different practices that helped me to begin to engage a spiritual realm outside of, hey, I'm in trouble here. Help, Lord. Right. So it was the beginning of that muscle of being willing to be still, to listen, to believe that I could actually receive divine insight, because that's part of it too. Some people are like, oh, I'm not even sure that I can. Yes, you can. Right. And so I had to learn how to exercise all of those muscles to grow more confident in the fact that I can do that and that there is insight available to me beyond my own wisdom, whether it be earned or borrowed from other people, that there's another dimension to it. All of that came in the willingness to be still. And that's how it started. I call them business meetings with God. And then I started mentoring people on business meetings with God, right? Right now I call them wisdom meetings because some people that they don't necessarily resonate with business meeting with God. But there's a lot of people who are like, I'm not too sure about Jesus, but I do believe that there is wisdom beyond my own.
In a transcendent practice. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's available to you. Right. And so, wisdom meeting, business meeting with God, but that's what it started.
So basically now you're focusing on that. You've written books about it.
Yeah.
And you're mentoring people, you're guiding people,
Mm-hmm.
even outside the sort of the traditional faith.
I am now. The last couple of years, the audience focus has expanded, which was another divine thing. It wasn't on my agenda. But yes, so the message has expanded to be just accessible to whoever wants to receive it and not feel like it's guarded, because like we talked about earlier, grace is not bound by religion. And so by not putting it only in this package, I'm able to make it available, because it is to anyone who desires it, right? And so that's been the adventure of the last couple of years, and will be part of it for the next, decade plus.
How do you see it, people experiencing that outside of sort of the traditional faith constructs?
Yeah. When I talk about grace, I like to talk about the gifts of grace. And this is where people start to really like, oh, that really resonates. We've talked about the wisdom aspect, being able to access divine wisdom, but there's also other aspects of grace. So there is the rest part of grace that people really resonate with a lot. And even just some of the practical things to do to access more rest in your work. I like to talk about peace, right? Which then ends up going back to, some of the things I call it ground when I'm talking about, grace effect. When I'm talking to believers, I'll say, you get with the Holy Spirit, right? You're a business meeting with God, right? But I find that many people outside of a faith context resonate a lot when I talk about peace, and when I talk about rest, and when I talk about having healthy rhythms, which is my pace of grace, how to have healthy rhythms. When I'm having those conversations and I'm able to land right on their street of what they're experiencing on a regular basis, it then's opening them to, oh, I want that. And then that opens up to, by the way, the foundation of all of this stuff is in the grace effect framework called ground. And that's where we get to accessing, that power beyond you. And so sometimes the entryway in is the resonance that they're finding with either the rhythms conversation, the peace conversation, or the rest conversation.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly valuable. Oh my gosh. I mean, we know for a fact that America is the most overworked country on the planet, probably rivaled by Japan. Even, that's the only thing.
I was thinking there could be a rival in here. I don't know.
I think Japan is the only rival, actually,
Right.
statistically speaking.
Yeah.
We are insanely overworked. And it's sort of a shame for me, because on one hand, it is the most creative nation on earth, the most entrepreneurial, the most, honestly, I think the most faith-based, driven, comparatively, objectively. That's just true. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the creativity, a lot of the divine, like the transcendent potential is killed.
Yes.
By not experiencing rest and grace and connecting with the source.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like we're leaving insane amounts of value on the table as a nation,
yes,
as a corporation, as an individual, 100%. I've been Sabbathing for 15 years.
Yes.
And I've taught countless people how to do that.
Yes.
And it's completely transformative. Like I can't even imagine not doing that, right?
Right.
So, okay. So if I were to, as we sort of wrap it up a little bit, I would love for you to tell me two things. What is the secret to listening to a dream and not letting it die?
Listening to a dream and not letting it die. For me, it has been the willingness to move, even going back to that earlier conversation, because when I think about it, there's things that I have dreams around, like right now, like even unspoken ones or spoken to 2 or 3, ones that seem so out there. But my willingness to take even small steps in the direction that I'm like, I don't even know what the path of that looks like, but to even imagine its possibility, because I really feel like I've got this God-given dream. Okay, so I'm going to believe in its possibility. So belief is one of those things, but right on the tail of belief, it's the willingness to take a step. So I guess I would say both of those things. It would be belief and the willingness to move. Sometimes I have a willingness to move before I believe, and the move helps me in the belief. But the moving is way easier when I believe it first. But so kind of like the I guess if I put them as twins together, I would say.
And I mean, obviously, it's a twin for a reason, right?
Yes.
Because faith without action is dead, right?
Yes.
Faith without works is dead. So the second question is this: what is the secret of letting go of control? Because that's the only thing that keeps us from accepting grace. What is the secret of accepting grace and letting go of our obsession with control?
Okay. So this is going to seem like such a simple answer, but it's the answer I've got. And it is a decision. Because a lot of people won't even make the decision that they're willing to release control to receive something else. So if you tell me that's what you want, but you're like this the whole time, I don't believe you, right? You're having to actually start with a decision, because that puts you in a posture of humility to actually grow in that and to actually match the thing that you say that you want. But I have found, because I have mentored or advised directly well over 1,000 folks at this point. And I have found that without that fundamental decision, I've watched people say they want something, but not make the decision. And I can tell they haven't made the decision based off of the actions and the words that come out of their mouth. They haven't actually made a decision. So therefore, it's fantasy. It's not an actual like, oh, this is actually what I'm doing. This is actually a fantasy of yours because you actually haven't made that decision.
If this channel is doing its job, you're starting to see what's possible when someone who's brilliant at what they do finally has the brand to match. I've helped a nonprofit CEO raise $1.2 million in a single night. I've coached the founder building towards an IPO. I coached the reading coach who went from one-on-one sessions who became the official reading coach for a Major League Baseball children's program. There's a pattern. The passion and the expertise were already there. They just needed a brand strategy and a business model that makes their brilliance known to the world. That's exactly what we build on the Passion to Profit Lab. 4 days, 1 hour a day, live with me. Scan the QR code on the screen or find the link in the description, and I'll see you there. You know, I'm so glad you said that. Last night, I actually didn't sleep well tonight because I had an unpleasant conversation with a gentleman that I was working with for a while. And that was the breaking point. I said, I'm not going to say his name, obviously, but I said, look, it's hard for me to help you if you just don't trust and release control. And we went back, we went several circles and circles. He goes, no, I believe, I have confidence in my, capabilities. I believe in the business model, and I said, but you don't, you say you do, but you don't, your hands are closed. You're like this, and I said, it's just hard for me. It's painful for me to work with you. I'm sorry, It's the
truth anyhow.
Yeah, it's just like, I know you don't believe what I see in you, but please take it to heart.
Yeah.
But I think, and that was the thing. I was like literally yesterday. And I just like, when I have conversations like that, I have a thin skin. That's why I don't work with like a massive amount of people. Because like I lose sleep over it and everything. And I'm like, oh man.
That's the pastor in you.
So like I didn't get enough sleep and stuff like that. But it's so good that you bring that up, because even for me, that's a really good reminder. Okay. You know what? You can't control what somebody else's ability to just trust and have faith and move. You just can't.
No, you can't.
And they have to make that decision. I'm going to move and I'm going to have faith, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And there is no guarantee.
Right. There's no guarantees, and we have no control over the outcomes.
Exactly. And you have to, if you want to work with someone as a mentor, look for somebody who is coachable. If you are working with somebody as a mentor, make yourself coachable.
Yes.
Because that has to happen. Like you have to relinquish control.
That's right.
And be able to find a grace that carries you. And it's just terrifying for most people.
Yes. And it's like, but going back to, it's like the more you live in and more you walk out, it becomes, there's like this ease to it. But it seems so hard in the beginning because it's so far from where you normally are postured. But once you do, And and you don't graduate. So I make jokes about my own life where I'm like, oh, I think I just unlocked grace over grind level 13, or because I'm like, okay, because I've never experienced this before. And now I'm having to learn how to walk this out in these scenarios. Oh, I never had that level of responsibility around this before. So now I'm having to learn it from another aspect. Oh, so I'm constantly having to learn in every area as a parent. I've got 3 kids, a 25-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 9-year-old with unique needs. The 9-year-old, parenting her with autism is nothing like the other kids. I have to learn grace and parenting on a whole nother level, parenting her versus my other children, right? And so it's just something that we grow in, but there's an ease to it. It's not easy. There's an ease to it.
But there's an ease to it, and I think it's the way of ease.
Yes, it is. It is the way of ease. Yes.
Yes, and I love that. I'm going to go and reread that scripture in the Message.
Yes, Matthew 11:28 through 30. Mess you up in the best way.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, it never stops being amazing.
Yes, it's literally it's the only verses I know in the Message Bible.
But it is compelling. It is compelling. I love that. And it is compelling, particularly to us in 2026 in America, the culture of grind, the culture of, it's just glorified.
Yeah.
When you meet people, how are you doing? I'm tired. I'm busy. And it's like, seriously? So it's a badge of honor.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is not.
And it's not, right? So if you become a grace over grind person, if you're basically, you may answer that way on a bad day, but hopefully most of the time you're not going to answer that way.
Yes.
Right?
That's it. And also this one other thing is I have noticed, and you could tell me if you've noticed the same thing, but some of the younger generations, they're not about that grind life at all. So those who are employing future generations they're actually more purpose oriented, purpose driven, and impact driven, and all of those things, and not about that grind. So at some point, if you're going to be working with hiring,
and your boss is going to be like that,
right.
a grace of a grind boss, and you're still grinding, right?
Yes.
So there's a clash there
there's definitely a clash
norms.
there, which is why I'm loving the fact that now I get to do this work at an organizational level, not only at a individual entrepreneur or small business owner level, but we're having culture conversations about what this looks like.
That's fantastic.
For grace to transform an organization. That starts with the leaders.
Yeah, because basically that's the future. Like if you want grace over grind, if you don't embrace it, you're going to clash with the next generation. That's motivating.
Yep.
It's motivating. That's awesome. Well, Shae, thank you so much for an incredibly lively conversation. So much value here. And for those listening, I'll include all the resources for Shae, how you can find Shae Bynes online, all the offerings, the books in the show notes. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Christian. I enjoyed it.